So, Avi, you had asked something that was a little interesting and nuanced, and I wanted to get back to it. When we look at, other projects that have switched licenses like Elastic, there was quickly a fork of that with OpenSearch. Similarly, and we'll talk a little bit about Hashi. There's already talk about a Hashi split and fork as well. I've seen some work on that early on, and we've seen that happen, right? Why not with Mongo? And where Mongo is a little unique is Mongo never really started down that contribution and that, really big contributor base. And they've been on the record saying that they did not open source specifically for contributions or for help or for the classic kind of open source plays. They did it purely as a freemium strategy, which means that they weren't really focused on cultivating that contributor type environment. So when we talk about switching licenses, there probably weren't as many people who were contributing to the core who would a be willing to do a fork or have the knowledge to do a fork. But also, I think they've done an excellent job at focusing on the code and the infrastructure doesn't matter, preaching to developers to just spin up their stuff and then just forget about it. And I think that's what I've seen. Peter, I'm interested in your take on that.
I think you're right, Matt. And what I was trying to say with when answering Avi's question is that the SSPL license, the PR around it did a great job with making it look like that this is not going to affect users. So I believe that when MongoDB came up with this idea and they submitted SSPL to the OSI as a new open source license, they did a great job with explaining that, hey, unless you're Amazon or Azure or whoever else, you're not affected by this whole thing. And this is actually what they are maintaining to this day. But what you're saying, Matt, is also true. We did not come across a lot of MongoDB contributors. There are some. So I've seen, of course, MongoDB contributors, but of course, nowhere near to what a healthy open source project would call for. And what you're referring to, Matt, their claim that they used open source as a freemium strategy, yes, this was, I think, confirmed by their CEO,
Yeah.
where he said that MongoDB is basically built by MongoDB, and they do whatever with it. They are not really concerned about the community as it is, because there's none.
I feel like I've learned this kind of same lesson in many different contexts and flavors when it comes to building a business. That's just really all about managing people's expectations. If you're Mongo and you've set those expectations from the very beginning, that like, this is what we're doing, we own this, we're going to do whatever we want with this. And if you decide to go make that change, certainly people are not going to necessarily like the SSPL for all the reasons that you're describing, but people aren't as surprised by it. And so the uproar is not quite the same as if you are Elastic and kind of people have, felt like they had misaligned expectations to what ended up actually happening. And I think it's just very important, even internally running a business, like managing people's expectations. Very important.
Yeah. I think Elastic had 2,600 contributors when they switched licenses, and that's a lot of people who were like, wait a minute, what's happening with all my contributions? And so you mentioned something really interesting, Peter, was, this concept of kind of like, I've heard it called open washing, but I've heard it, kind of like the hijacking of the term open source. And this is where it's kind of interesting because, when you think about open source, a lot of this is focused on like, these new licenses still give you access to the code. But I found that a very small percentage of users actually go to the code level for most of their stuff. They're running it because they find it, freely available, because there is a community behind it, because there is some promise of, openness. The code for a lot of users is really secondary or even tertiary.
I feel the same way. The code is just there, just in case. It builds trust, right? If you would want to, you would be able to look at the code responsible for providing telemetry data, and you could verify that this software is not going to be a security issue for you.